A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Oh, excuse me, wrong franchise. What I meant to say is we're on the edge of greatness, turning darkness to light. Hello everyone, welcome to my first video about She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. It's about time I got around to tackling this one. She-Ra is a show with many major themes. Love, acceptance, friendship, of course LGBTQ representation, but the most prominent one, in my opinion at least, is parenting. The show explores how we are shaped by those who raise us and nurture us, and shows how people can be more than what they were made to be. So today I'll examine various examples of parenting and upbringing on this show, and how different characters are affected by it. Though I suppose it's worth noting in advance that some of these are a bit broad in how they qualify as parenting. Anyway, I could keep rambling on in this introduction, but you guys want to get to the actual discussion. Without further ado, let's begin.
So I did the only thing I could. I secretly taught myself archery, ran away, and pretended I was at a made-up boarding school.
That seems really elaborate, Bo.
As we go on our tour of parenting and upbringing and other related topics, you may notice that the quality of the parenting decreases as we go along. And it isn't a steady decrease, there will be a pretty sharp drop-off. First up we have Bo, the most precious character, alongside his possibly even more precious dads, George and Lance. As the youngest of 13, Bo didn't want to be a historian like the rest of his family and instead chose to take up archery and join the rebellion against the Horde. Unfortunately, Bo kept this a secret from his dad since they had certain expectations of him and he was afraid they would disagree with what he chose to do, thanks to their not-so-great history with the First Princess Alliance. Well, first off, this is a brilliant metaphor for being in the closet in a world where homophobia doesn't exist, but it's also simply a mutual error in communication which exaggerated the problem in Bo's mind. When George and Lance find out that Bo fights with the princesses, they're not disappointed at him, but at themselves. They certainly have Bo's best interests in mind, but they were so focused on what they wanted for him that they just didn't know what those interests actually were. And while Bo regularly gets into danger while fighting in the rebellion, they don't stop him, because they're good parents and they won't stop Bo from doing what he wants to do. Though they do advise Bo not to go to the Crimson Waste because of the danger, but he does it anyway. Oh well. Bo's the main character, so he was guaranteed to survive. One question about Bo's dads is where did they get all their artifacts? Well, considering where we see them in Season 5, it's likely that they regularly excavate First One's ruins. I mean, where else would they have gotten that robot? They probably didn't find all the books at the library, though. I'm guessing that they bought the library and proceeded to add to the pre-existing collection. Also, this isn't exactly related to what I've been saying, but I can't be the only one who thinks Bo's outfit here looks like Fred from Scooby-Doo. Oh, and George's design was based on Bo from the original series, and he's named after Bo's original voice actor. You know, for a show where parenting is such a major theme, a lot of characters just don't seem to have them. Glimmer and Bo are the exceptions, not the rule. Glimmer's parents are significant enough to get their own segment, so let's discuss the other princesses. First off, Glimmer's powers weren't as strong in the first half of the series because she shared the power of her runestone with Angela, something no other princess had to deal with. Frost's parents are all but outright stated to be dead considering she became the ruler of her kingdom at age 8. Remista's dad is said to have retired, so he might be alive, but probably isn't. Scorpia is pictured as a baby with her moms. Considering how often the Fright Zone appears, frequently, and how often Scorpia's moms appear there, never, it's likely that they're gone. Entrapta may have been raised by robots, which would explain her tech savviness. Or perhaps her parents died young and she built replacements. There's no evidence of Perfuma's parents being alive. Plumeria doesn't actually seem to have a lot of people to begin with. There's no information for Natasa and Spinnerelli either, but they're older, so that's less significant. So yeah, almost all the main characters are orphans to some extent. Hopefully everyone lives longer than their parents so they can spend some quality time with their children. Speaking of children, let's talk a little more about Frosta.
Kiddo, I'm the ruler of my own kingdom. Got it, old man?
Yes, I have accepted the headcanon that Frosta is always treated as the baby of the bunch even when they're all old. It makes sense since I imagine she'll continue to put on a front of seriousness when ruling and only show her true playful personality to her friends. When she's first introduced, she says she's 11 3/4. And since she's introduced in episode 8, let's say the series began when she was 11 and a half. More than 3 years pass over the course of the series, meaning by the end she's roughly 14 3/4. Yet she seemingly didn't age at all. So does she have stunted growth, or has magic halted her aging? You know what, it's not that important. Or as Mystery Science Theater 3000 famously put it, it's just a show, I should really just relax. It's generally accepted that Catra's species is called Magicats, and we know she isn't the only one since there's a few in Boys Night Out. There's also a few cat people seen briefly in Season 5, but there's no proof that this is on Etheria, so let's ignore it. Why are there so few Magicats? Well, I think the Horde may acquire new children the same way Thanos does. The few we see may be all that's left. Or maybe there are plenty of Magicats who have hidden themselves away from the Horde. Some people speculate that Catra is a lost princess. There is indeed what appears to be a cat princess in Light Hope's diagram, though she doesn't exactly look like Catra, so this could be her mom or sister or something. It would be quite the irony if Catra turns out to have been a princess the whole time.
Dear Mom, I know you'll never read this, but I have to say it somewhere. I feel like you don't respect me.
Glimmer has a rather strained relationship with her mother, Queen Angela. This is apparent as soon as they're introduced. Angela is very overprotective of Glimmer, while Glimmer dislikes how her mom keeps babying her and not treating her like she's mature enough. There's also Glimmer's underlying insecurities at play. Glimmer is afraid Angela will look down on her for her issues because Angela wants her to be the best she could be. Really what Glimmer wants is validation for doing what she wants to do, not conforming to someone else's standard. Part of the reason why she cares about Bo so much is because he likes her for who she is, not because she's a princess. And it's a mutual feeling with Bo's situation discussed previously. At the end of the day, Angela does sincerely care about Glimmer, but Micah's apparent death led her to become overprotective, which strained their relationship. She knows she should take a more active role in the fight against the Horde, but chooses to stay safe in Brightmoon with Glimmer, even if that makes her a coward in the process. I've read theories that Angela tried numerous times to have a child and was unsuccessful before Glimmer, and she may have been the only healthy baby Angela could ever make. And this makes a lot of sense, since it helps explain her overprotectiveness. If Glimmer was killed in battle with the Horde, then she'd have no more family. To her knowledge, at least. Micah tried to tell her he was still alive in the portal reality, but he got cut off. Anyway, it's really tragic that the last conversation Angela and Glimmer ever had was an argument.
You'll always be around, telling me what I can't do. You never listen.
Well, the last real conversation they had. Angela was presumably Queen of Brightmoon for decades, if not centuries. Despite this, it appears that she fully intended to let Glimmer have the throne, considering she left that message for her. As anyone who's watched Season 4 can tell you, Glimmer struggles with the absence of both parents. She was so preoccupied with having best friend squad style fun that she didn't take into account how daunting ruling a kingdom is. Of course, tensions arose when she was still overprotected, but she couldn't complain to her friends because they were the ones protecting her. And then she decided to use the heart, and then she got captured by Prime, and then when she finally got to meet her dad again after so many years, he was chipped. Things just don't go well for Glimmer in general. And now that the best friend squad has pledged to bring magic back into the universe, I imagine Micah will be running things in Brightmoon for a while. Glimmer needs some time to have fun exploring different planets before focusing on being a queen again. Now it's time to tackle the big question. Could Angela be rescued? It's never been confirmed that shutting down the portal is fatal, just that it leaves someone stuck in a space between dimensions.
The only way to turn it off is from the inside. But whoever shuts the portal down can't leave. They'll be trapped between realities, possibly forever. Oh, imagine the data they could collect.
While removing the sword very well could have killed Angela, there's nothing saying it definitely did. I imagine it would be hard to survive between dimensions, but Angela's a resilient being. Now that Etheria is out of Despondos and with access to more advanced technology from the wider universe, Entrapta and Hordek, and Wrong Hordek, can't forget about him, could open a hole between dimensions and rescue Angela. Well, assuming she's still alive. If she's not, then things will get pretty awkward. Perhaps she's able to observe everything on Etheria from her perch between realities. If so, she was probably looking down at everyone during Season 4 like, come on, really? Maybe Glimmer seeing her in the finale was Angela managing to briefly reach out and connect to the wider universe? Sounds like a plausible theory. Moving on, it's no secret that Glimmer's Seasons 4 and 5 outfit is based on Angela's. But did you notice that Glimmer only has one earring compared to Angela's 2? Well, in the future, the other earring will be worn by Bo. Isn't that the most wholesome thing? Oh, speaking of that future scene, you may have noticed that Glimmer's hair doesn't sparkle. Angela's hair doesn't sparkle either, and the most common explanation as to why is that they went away when Glimmer is born. By that logic, Glimmer is a mother in this scene. Or maybe sparkles coincide with maturity. They do look a little brighter at the beginning of the series than at the end. Which explanation do you prefer?
I don't know what they told you, but it wasn't all bad at first. We were the first ones to settle Etheria, to really study this planet's magic. How could it go so wrong?
Beginning from their home planet Eternia, the first ones explored the universe looking to harvest the magical resources they found. Naturally, this put them into conflict with Horde Prime, who is very much against magic. So when they discovered Etheria, a planet absolutely teeming with magic, a plan began to brew in their minds. They would concentrate the planet's magic into a single explosive core that when set off would be catastrophic. While the heart of Etheria would have killed most life in the universe, the first one simply didn't care since it would presumably take out Horde Prime in the process. To them, the ends justify the means, even if it makes them only marginally better than Prime. Somewhere along the line, the first ones concluded that the best way to use the heart is to channel the magic through the elemental princesses and Etheria's magical protector, Shira. The first ones created the Sword of Protection so they could, for lack of a better word, hack She-Ra for their own purposes. It's unclear how many First One She-Ras there were, but Mara probably wasn't the first. Mara was so innocent. All she wanted to do was help Etheria with magic and spend time with Lighthope, but both of these were compromised by the first ones. It probably broke Mara's heart to injure Lighthope when she was trying to stop the heart. At least this confirmed they'll be together again. Alas, Mara was forced to discard She-Ra's sword and transport Etheria to the empty dimension of Despondos to stop the heart, sacrificing herself in the process. If only her team discovered the failsafe sooner. Initially, I wondered why Mara didn't destroy the sword like Adora eventually does if she didn't want there to be another She-Ra, but then I decided to use my brain and realized Mara didn't have a lot of time and saving Etheria takes precedence over destroying a sword. Plus, she knew there would eventually be another She-Ra thanks to Raz, but the power of She-Ra isn't contained within the sword. Adora was definitely more powerful after she destroyed the sword than when she had it. But if Adora never found the sword, then the whole series wouldn't have happened, so yeah, hiding the sword was the right choice. I suppose it was all worth it in the end since Horde Prime was killed. 1,000 years go by without a She-Ra, long enough for She-Ra to become a myth, along with stars. Lighthope concludes that thanks to First One's interference, only a First One can be She-Ra. Thus she began opening portals to find this magical First One, with the portal Hordak fell through seemingly being one of them. Hordak actually saved the planet by delaying the use of the heart, first by separating Scorpia's family from the Black Garnet, and later finding Adora. If he didn't do those things, then Lighthope would have found the baby Adora, and the weapon would have been willingly fired by a younger, indoctrinated Adora. She wouldn't be as awkward as our Adora, though. Can Adora read First One's writing because she's a First One, because she's She-Ra, or both? I mean, probably because she's She-Ra, since no one would have taught her First One's writing. And how did Lighthope know Adora would eventually find the sword? Could she have somehow influenced the skiff's movement so Adora fell off? Probably not, but it's not impossible. Reprogrammed Lighthope wanted Adora slowly focus on her supposed destiny of balancing Etheria. That thing in the beacon was Lighthope's successful way of forcing Adora and Catra further apart. Emotions hold Adora back from her intention as well. Lighthope knows that people are easier to use if they're socially isolated. This is why this approach actually worked with Glimmer in Season 4, because she had already alienated herself from her friends. While the First Ones no longer exist as a major empire thanks to Prime, they still exist in some capacity on a single planet.
I thought the First Ones were all gone, but clearly some faction remains.
Of course, some horrible accident could have befallen them within Adora's lifetime, but let's not think about that. I imagine that finding Adora's home planet would be one of the Best Friend Squad's goals post-series. However, they should proceed with caution. There could be a potential conflict with the First One remnants now that Etheria is back and Prime is dead. There might be some people around who want to weaponize magic like the First Ones of the past, so the squad might be wary of bringing magic to this world. Though given this is 1,000 years after the near total destruction of their culture, everything should be fine. Will Adora meet her biological family? Her parents may still be around, and would be very glad to know that their daughter isn't dead. And Adora might have a long-lost brother. But considering what Horde Prime said he did to the First Ones, unless there's a crossover special, Adora's family are probably the only He-Man characters that exist in S-Pop. But if we're talking about Adora's upbringing, then we have to talk about you-know-who.
From the moment I laid eyes on you, I knew you were different. You were...
Special? No.
No video about upbringing in She-Ra is complete without discussing Shadow Weaver, famous for her A+ parenting of Adora and Catra. She only cared about Adora superficially for self-serving reasons, and really didn't care about Catra at all. Shadow Weaver only cared for Adora because she sensed her magic potential. If she didn't have this potential, I doubt she would have been treated any different than Catra, who she regularly used and abused. Adora was probably the only one who bought all the Horde's propaganda, but she didn't know any better. Adora never fully understood the depth of what Shadow Weaver did to her until she defected to the rebellion. And when Adora was unwilling to accept her guidance, she was perfectly willing to use the next available princess. Interestingly, she appears to genuinely care about Micah even in the present. Maybe she respects and/or fears his power. Anyway, Shadow Weaver left Adora with crippling self-doubt and desire to prove herself as a hero. She hates the fact that she seemingly doesn't have a choice in being a hero. She overworks herself to the point of extreme pain and exhaustion since she believes she's only good enough to save other people. She doesn't believe she deserves anything else and has to be flat out told she deserves love for her to even entertain that notion. Even though Adora knows Shadow Weaver is evil, she still believes there's good in her because she's the closest thing to a mom she's ever had. And she does show a little goodness at the end. Just a little. But no, Shadow Weaver's sacrifice doesn't redeem her. She did save Adora and Catra, but also successfully made herself look better towards her abuse victims in her last moment. Now on to Catra, or as she's properly known, Elizabeth Catra Applesauce Meow Meow. Shadow Weaver's abuse of Catra was a lot more overt, causing a lot of fear. And as we all know, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, etc., etc. Adora was the only source of happiness Catra had in the Horde, so when Adora left, she was hurt more than anyone could have possibly imagined. And once Catra was promoted to Force Captain, Shadow Weaver continued to undermine her at every turn, whether it was by stealing Catra's credit or not telling her about Force Captain orientation. When Catra faces disapproval from Hordak, she seeks out Shadow Weaver, not because Shadow Weaver regularly gives her approval, which is obviously not the case, but because she desperately seeks some sort of validation. Despite all the abuse she went through, Catra still seeks out Shadow Weaver's kindness, even when she's only being kind to emotionally manipulate her. Deep down, Catra knows she should force Shadow Weaver out and have nothing to do with her, but she can't. She's never known anything else. This is true abuse. Catra did go pretty overboard in trying to destroy the universe and all, but it was all because Shadow Weaver chose Adora over her again. Catra reacted the only way she knew how, throwing a suicidal cosmic temper tantrum. Similarly, she was rude to her subordinates because she was just mimicking the authority she knew growing up, even though she knows it's wrong. And when she actually has some successes, winning doesn't feel fulfilling, because all she really wants is Adora. It's really tragic because Catra could have left the Horde whenever she wanted like Adora, but she didn't because in her damaged way of thinking that's admitting defeat. Plus she doesn't think herself worthy of happiness or forgiveness or love.
All I do is hurt people. There's no one left in the entire universe who cares about me.
And all of this stems back to Shadow Weaver. She caused Catra to cause her own problems. Adora and Catra always loved each other but never acted on it until the finale because they were raised in an environment where such feelings were discouraged. And I don't think Adora recognized what love is until after she left the Horde. That future simulation in the finale suggests she was subconsciously in love with Catra, but wasn't consciously until Catra admitted she loves her. But as we all know, there were plenty of romantic moments between them before then, like at Princess Prom. The go-to dancer prom episode which helps the ship sail. Never fails. Also, Double Trouble was at the Princess Prom. The real Flutterina was also there, so maybe this is where Double Trouble came up with one of their go-to disguises.
You thought yourself worthy to challenge me, but you are nothing but a false hero, the last of the first ones to fall at my hands.
The only She-Ra character who manages to be a worse individual than Shadow Weaver is Horde Prime, or as I like to call him, the guy Palpatine desperately wishes he was. Sheev lies awake at night thinking about Horde Prime. Anyway, over the course of millennia, Prime managed to conquer a large chunk of the universe, purifying them with his light, since in his eyes he's the only being in the universe that truly matters. Why does he do it? Well, his original planet is probably long gone, and that may be the spark that led him to become an intergalactic conqueror. Mentioning Thanos again, maybe it was a similar situation. Some disaster happened and a solution Prime proposed could have worked. Now he spends his life spreading his light to the whole universe so everyone can be right, destroying non-compliant worlds on the regular. Or, as Prime's voice actor Keston John put it, he thinks that he's bringing his version of the gospel to every planet and they're better for it even if they have to die to receive it. He somehow managed to transcend his original body. This mass that is his wretched soul goes from body to body, and he's had hundreds of primary bodies over the years. Meanwhile, he maintains a vast network of subservient clones. How is he able to do this? Well, perhaps his species has special abilities, like possession, that he bred his clones not to have. Or he could just be some cosmic horror being who descended into the normal universe, taking a member of whatever this species is called as his vessel. There are subtle differences between clones as we can see with Hordak and Wrong Hordak, or Kadro as some people have called them. So this means that the clones may naturally have personalities that are suppressed by the hive mind. The hive mind is interesting because while the clones are all connected to Prime, they don't seem to be connected to each other, allowing Wrong Hordak to pretend he's still loyal. Horde Prime is based on a religious cult leader, and thus Wrong Hordak represents a deprogrammed cult member. Hordak may take it upon himself to help out the thousands, if not millions of Ford clones who will be in that same situation after Prime's death. Or maybe it'll be part of his community service. Hordak wasn't as important to Prime as he thought. He misremembered what their relationship was like after spending decades on Etheria as an individual, applying Etherian ideals to Prime. He considered himself Prime's top general when giving his backstory in Season 3, but given what we now know about Prime, it's clear that this isn't accurate. Horde Prime may favor certain clones, but he has no top general. That implies he's giving them a form of individualism. You know, there must have been a lot of stuff in the ship Hordak was on for him to build his own version of the Horde. It's reasonable to assume Galactic Horde tech far surpassed anything that was on Etheria, except for whatever's going on in Drill. He thought conquering Etheria with this tech would show Prime he wasn't weak, but all it did was show insubordination. It's unclear if Hordak's mind wipes didn't work because of the defect in his cloning, or just because he spent decades away from the hive mind and unknowingly built up some sort of resistance. I know his hair is dyed, but I honestly don't know how his eyes and mouth became red. However it happened, I think he'll go back to his Hordak appearance now that Prime is dead. His defects will most likely slowly return, but remember...
Imperfection is beautiful.
While the Etherian Horde has done some horrible things, it's practically humane compared to the Galactic Horde. For starters, let's just look at the contrast between how Prime treats his subordinates and how Hordak does. Prime treats them with condescension at most and murder at worst, whereas Hordak treats them with courtesy and respect provided they're useful. And the same can be said for failed clones. Prime purges them and Hordak shows them affection. Entraptor was the first one to not see Hordak's flaws as a bad thing. He didn't know how to react, but eventually treated her with respect. Hordak treated Entraptor with more respect than the other princesses ever did. It's interesting to note that the two most significant people in his life both have prehensile hair, just an observation. But that makes it all the more tragic after it was confirmed that he easily believed Catra's lie about Entraptor because he believes he doesn't deserve friendship. As mentioned before, Horde Prime has many religious undertones, though sometimes it's so overt that they're practically overtones. Prime is a religious leader who keeps the faithful under a tight leash and purges the sinners without remorse. Plus, he purifies his clones in a ritual deliberately designed to resemble a baptism. In a similar vein, Prime berating Hordak for choosing a name and creating his own identity represents a transphobic parent disliking their transgender child. Thus, the reconditioning represents conversion therapy. They say Horde Prime's weakness is magic, but really, it's love. Love broke Hordak away from his reconditioning, love enabled Adora to become She-Ra again, love saved the universe from being destroyed. I guess magic is also his weakness. One might say that love is the strongest form of magic. Hatred and oppressive systems may become powerful, but have hope, because in the end, love conquers all. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed my first She-Ra video. I really should have watched the show when it aired, but better late than never. As always, feel free to leave a comment and share your own theories. And until next time, thanks for watching.